So, good afternoon, everyone. This is your registered migration agent, attorney Renante P. Sulit. My MARA number is 138-2407. I am currently here in Melbourne in our national office, and I'm very happy to be on live after some time because I've been so busy with a lot of things, with lots of work. Um, Going to different places and monitoring our offices in Singapore, Dubai, and as well as in the Philippines. And we are so busy with our nurses here in Australia. And let's have some chit chat first. Okay, so I will do a shout out sometimes. Um, I will shout out some of the followers. So I have here Taylor Sarita from Pagadian City. I have Mitaika here, loud and clear. I have Haybook Gaming. Hopefully, you can see me now. Haybook Gaming. And let me see. Okay, so we have RPS King Zamboanga as well. And we have RPS Iloilo as well. And we are very happy. No, we are very happy today because I'm going to discuss today the next step for our registered nurses who have just passed the OSCE. Whether you do it here in our Australian certified trainers or you do it yourself. So in some ways we can give some advice or some information to follow if you don't know what to do. We'll give you a brief background of what is OSCE and how it is happening here in Australia. So OSCE is the clinical part of the examination, the clinical stage of the examination, and the first, it's part of the OBA, of the outcomes based assessment. For those of you who don't know yet the outcomes based assessment, it is the newest approach of APRA in assessing internationally qualified nurses here in Australia. If you would like to become a registered nurse here in Australia, then one of the pathways to become one is through the OBA. And OBA has two stages. Number one is the NCLEX, which is the theoretical part of the examination. So you can do it anywhere outside of Australia, inside of Australia. That is not a problem. Now let's go to the second part, which is the OSCE. This is the clinical part of the examination. So we created Australian certified trainers who will be the training arm of RPS migration. And we have produced so many OSCE passers. I would like to congratulate all our OSCE passers. November cycle, December cycle, congratulations. And for those nurses who don't make it, no, for a single point, then there is always a second time for those who did not make it. But Australian certified trainers has posted a very high batting average or passing average. And for those nurses who pass OSCE and who are listening today, whether you did it yourself or you did it with us, now I'm going to discuss your pathway. What is next with our OSCE passers? Okay, so it's very challenging right now in Australia to get sponsorship. That's what you are reading, no? In so many groups or in the immigration, it's so hard to get that sponsorship. So what will happen if you cannot get that sponsorship? Now, that is a very big questions. So today I am going to discuss with you some of the pathways or some of the things that you need to do from passing OSCE, because no one is discussing about it, and it is, I think, is one way of helping our fellow nurses who took OSCE and passed OSCE to know what are the next steps to be taken. No? So some of you might have read, some of you might have taken these steps. However, I'm going to discuss it nevertheless. Okay, after passing OSCE, now whether you took your OSCE here in Melbourne or you took your OSCE in South Australia, in Adelaide. So the first thing that you need to do is to process all your papers for registration. So you have to open your portal again, and you will see there that you're going to submit several documents. So you have to sit for your Pearson test of English and or any other English test. There are so many English tests that are accredited by APRA for registration purposes. We have IELTS, PTE, OET, or others. No TOEFL, but for my clients, no, my clients are taking Pearson tests of English because I think it's more convenient for them. It is fast and um, it's very easy for my clients. We have been using that for the past 10 years or 7 years, 8 years since its inception, no, since the beginning of Pearson tests of English. So sit for the English test for PTE all 65, for IELTS all all 7 at least, no, for registration purposes. Now there is a development or there will be a change come April 2025 for English requirement of opera. Maybe you have seen it in my video in my YouTube channel that come April 2025, no, come April 2025, the uh, APRA will change the English language requirement for nurses, midwives, and other medical professionals. And in so far as Pearson test of English, you need to have like at least 66 as an average, no, as an average. And for writing, it you can have at least 56. So, but the overall must be at least 66. So, you can have a first sitting or second sitting and up to two sittings only for registration purposes. Now, maybe the writing is very hard. That's why they decrease, no, the band score for PTE, but the average is now 66. That will be the change come April 2025. For now, it's still all 65. Okay, so after submitting your certificate of good standing, no, so you will get your certificate of good standing from the regulatory authority. So if you were a graduate, no, from the Philippines and you were registered at Philippine Professional Regulations Commission (PRC), you are going to request your certificate of good standing to be sent to APRA. And then, as well, it is very convenient for you if you are going to send your COGS to ANMAC as well. ANMAC is different from APRA because ANMAC is the skills assessing body. So you can search in the internet what is the address of ANMAC. It's in Canberra. So for APRA, so you may send it whichever state that you would want to be, or you may send it here in Victoria because the national board is just sitting here in Victoria. So you may send your COGS to APRA and ANMAC. So how many COGS that you are going to send? You may if you are registered in different jurisdictions, so you have to send all COGS where you are registered. Say, for example, if you are also registered in Singapore, as well as in UK, as well as in Saudi, no, as well as in Dubai, UAE, so you may send all these COGS to APRA so that they will know that you are a nurse of good standing. So that's number one. Number two, you're going to open your link, no, in your portal, and you will see there several questions. Several questions are very easy to understand, but some questions are very confusing. So number one is that, do you commit yourself? No, do you commit yourself in having professional indemnity insurance? So that's very confusing. The answer there should be yes, because here in Australia, if you are a practicing professional, you must have your indemnity insurance, that in case of any problem in your practice, then you may there is an insurance that can answer no about that malpractice. Again, that do you commit yourself in having professional indemnity insurance? The answer there should be yes. Another confusing is that the international criminal history check. No, the international criminal history check is a third party check. No, which is conducted by a third party organization here in Australia, and they will send to APRA their findings. So, if you, for example, live in different countries, so for more than 12 months, so you have to send the international criminal history check. So each one is AIS, that's number one, and the other there is another provider for the international criminal history check. So if you live in the Philippines, Saudi Arabia, and all others, so you have to count all these countries. So and then get the international criminal history check. Please note that international criminal history check is not the NBI. Okay, it's not the NBI. An international criminal history check cannot be used in migration, only for registration purposes. And now, so once you have the complete requirements for APRA, then you are going to be registered anytime soon. Now, question. After getting registered in APRA, what is the next step? What are the things that you need to do? What are the suggested steps that you have to take upon registration? This is where it becomes more exciting, because once you registered in Australia, once you become an Australian registered nurse, then it opens many opportunities for you. No, so number one, I'm going to discuss that it opens um, a job opportunity for you, because in Australia you can only work as a registered nurse if you become a registered nurse in Australia. Since you have already accomplished that, so that registration opens an opportunity for you to apply for a subclass 4A2, or the skills in demand visa. Subclass 4A2 or skills in demand visa under core stream. Okay? Now, what are the things that you need to do? Of course, you have to look for the employers yourself, no? So, at RPS Migration, or Australian Certified Trainers do not recruit nurses for jobs. So all you need to do is to look for hospitals, employers who are sponsoring for subclass 482 or the skills in demand visa. What are the requirements for this? Number one is that you must be a registered nurse here in Australia. Number two, you must have at least 1 year of experience in the last 5 years. No? That's it. So those are the two basic requirements. Number one is that you must first be a registered nurse. Number two, you must have at least 1 year of experience or 12 months of experience in the last 5 years. It can be successive, it can be cumulative, as long as it is within the last 5 years. This is a new provision. No? This is a new provision in migration regulations. This is part of the change, because before this, the requirement for work experience is 2 years. No, 2 years in the last 5 years. Now it becomes 1 year. So where are you going to look for sponsors? So we have here in Australia, we have the seek.com.au, you have that You have that LinkedIn, and you have those advertisements. No, what are the things that you need to look for? No, for the employer. Number one is that you must ensure, no, you must look, or you must see to it that this sponsor has the SBS. What is SBS? SBS is the Standard Business Sponsorship. SBS, that's what you call it. So it's very easy, no? It's very easy to look, to scrutinize that. You may ask them if they have sponsored before, and if you know someone who gets sponsored by this company. So more probably they have the SBS, or you can ask the immigration if they have the standing SBS, because a hospital or a facility cannot sponsor an employer or a foreign worker without the SBS. Okay. Now, after that, you must have the nomination. No, nomination. You have to be nominated. What are the things to be uh, what are the things to be provided in nomination? Number one, your skills, qualifications, and experience must be the same with the uh, must be related to specific occupations to be nominated. For example, you are a registered nurse. Okay, you are a registered nurse medical. So you get your nomination for a registered nurse medical, so that your nomination is correct. Now, if you got your nomination already, if you have your TRN already, if you have your TRN already sent, you can proceed with the visa application. No? With the visa application. If you don't know how to process your visa, or if you do not have someone to assist you with your visa application, well, RPS Migration is here to help you on that. So, um, the visa application is very straightforward. So there are things that you need to address, especially your years of experience. You are claiming to have at least 1 year in the last 5 years. You have to substantiate it with evidence. Now, the evidence must be there. All you can include your family, immediate family only. Say, for example, your husband or your wife and your kids. No? When will it be approved, or when will the outcome be? No? So the outcome of the visa application presupposes that there is an outcome already of the nomination. Say, for example, you are wondering, when will my visa come out? When will my visa, 482 visa, come out? So it should, if the nomination has already been granted, for example, then more likely the next one that will be scrutinized, that will be decided on, will be your visa. So if your visa is not yet decided, maybe your nomination is not yet decided as well. So your employer might tell you that, oh, your nomination has been approved. So more likely that your visa will come out soon. So there are three stages for subclass 4A2, or the skills in demand visa. Number one is the SBS, the approved standard sponsorship. Number two is nomination, and number three is the visa application. We have three stages. The first two can be done by the employer. They will give you the TRN, the transaction reference number, for the visa application. And once you have that, then you can proceed with your visa. If you don't know one to process that, well, RPS Migration is here to help you. Okay, so that is one of the next step that you may consider after passing your OSCE. So the next one that you may consider is subclass 186. Okay, so this is the counterpart of subclass 482, but this one is permanent already. Subclass 482 is a temporary visa, while subclass 186 is a permanent visa. Just the same, we have three stages as well. One is sponsorship, second is nomination, and third is the visa application. So what's the difference? For subclass 186, you must first be a registered nurse. Okay, so that's the same. Number two, you must have at least 3 years of experience in the last 5 years. So for 482, 1 year. Here, 3 years. And of course, another requirement for subclass 186, which is very, very important, is that you must have your skills assessed by the skills assessing body. What is the skills assessing body for registered nurses? We have the ANMAC, or the Australian Nursing Midwifery Accreditation Council. That is called ANMAC. No? So, for example, you got nominated for registered nurse medical. So, therefore, your visa application, your nomination, uh, for example, you got your skills assessment for registered nurse medical, your nomination must be registered nurse medical as well. It cannot be surgical, it cannot be other specific occupation, because the ANSCO code, or the OSCA now, the code now is very specific. So therefore, you have to really be mindful of that. No? So there is the skills assessment, because this is rather a permanent visa. What's the difference between 482 and 186? 482 is a temporary visa, 186 is a permanent visa. 482, it needs 1 year of experience in the last 5 years. 186, it needs 3 years of experience. Now, for the 482, skills assessment is not necessary. In 186, skills assessment is mandatory. So you cannot go away with it. I have one situation, no? I have one situation that I an applicant lodged a 186 without ANMAC. That is a very big problem. Okay? That is a very big problem, and I solved it. I already solved it. So whenever you need an assistance with regard to your visa, it's very good to consult with a registered migration agent. RPS, myself, is only one of the registered migration agents here in Australia. So there are so many registered migration agent here in Australia, and you can go to where you are most convenient, no? Where you can really have the connection. But if you can connect with me, of course I'm very happy. No, I am very happy to get connected as well. No, but of course, we do have our colleagues as well who are also very good at the things that they do. However, RPS migration can also be your can be also a registered migration agent who can assist, no, in your visa application. So what are the what other things that you need to remember with subclass 186? This is called the employer sponsored visa. So it is permanent. So if you are a permanent visa holder, you are eligible for the Medicare. You are also eligible for other benefits of a permanent resident. This doesn't need an invitation. That is the good thing about subclass 186. It doesn't need any invitation at all. All you need to do is to have a if you ha- is an employer who can provide you subclass 186. Another thing, subclass 186 direct entry. No? Another thing, say for example, if you are a holder of subclass 482, and if you work for at least 2 years, no, with the same employer or other employer, then you can have a transition. I don't You can have a transition of subclass 186 because you will have your employer can, no, your employer can sponsor you. So that is the subclass 186 transition from subclass 482 to subclass 186. There is another thing, subclass 186 direct entry. So you don't need 482, you need a 186 right away. You can do that as well. No? I have so many clients who got subclass 186 direct entry. No? They sometimes go to regional areas, no? And most of them are from the UK. Most of them are from the UK, and some of them are also OSCE passers. Um, and before the change, now before the change, there is a lot of employers who are sponsoring. No, now of course it's very challenging. Remember, finding a job here in Australia is not it's not only about your registration. You must also satisfy all other requirements. Say for example the skill set, the way you answered interview. Okay, so your overall package in the interview, so that also counts. Registration is one, all others, there are many other variables that you need to consider. No, but of course getting your registration, of course, is mandatory. Oh, we have here Gabriel Escal here, so congratulations, Gabriel, for passing your OSCE. We have here Jonah May de Guzman, also our passer, no? From La Union. Gabriel is from Mindoro and Santa Rosa. And yes, Taylor is always here, no? And yep, so those are the things that you need to remember in subclass 482 and subclass 186. I already mentioned to you the ANMAC, no? ANMAC is the skills assessing body for nurses. So there are so many nurses. Registered nurse perioperative, registered nurse emergency, registered nurse aged care, registered nurse community, registered nurse surgical, registered nurse medical, so on and so forth. So many. Until you have registered nurse not elsewhere classified, no, NEC. I will discuss that later. All right. So, for example, oh, attorney, I cannot get subclass 482. I cannot get subclass 186. I've been like staying here in the Middle East for so long. I've been staying in the Philippines for so long. I would like to go back, no? I would like to go back to Australia. Now, if you cannot find a sponsor, no? If you cannot find a sponsor and you cannot either subclass 482 or subclass 186, the answer for that is general skilled migration. It can be subclass 189, subclass 190, subclass 491, subclass 489. So those are the subclasses that you may explore. And this is a points tested visa, no? Points tested visa. And since it is points tested visa, your points must at least be 65. No, you must reach at least 65. And where do you get these points from? Where do you get these points? You may get these points from your age, English proficiency, education, experience, of course, your status. No? So those are the attributes. Those are your attributes where we get points. Say, for example, you are 25 years old, between 25 to 32, you have 30 points, you have 33, between 33 to 39, 25 points, you are 40 to 45, you have 15 points. And then because the age threshold is 45, you must be less than 45 years old at the time of invitation. Huh? For 482, there is no age requirement. For 186, there is less than 45 age requirement. For 189, 190, there is an age requirement of less than 45. For English proficiency, say for example, for Pearson test of English, you get 79 and above, you get superior score, and that is 20 points. If you have proficient only, you have 10 points only. Say, for example, for your educational qualification, you have 15 points. And of course, for your status, if you are single, 10 points. If you are married with de facto partner, you have 5 points, depending if your husband, your wife, or partner will sit for an English test. And for your experience, you have 3 years, less than 5 years, 5 points, 5 years, less than 8 years, 10 points, 8 years and above in the last 10 years, then you get like 15 points. So if you sum up together, sometimes you get 65, 75, 80, plus nomination of 5 points, you get 80, 85, depending on um, depending on the on the kind of English proficiency that you will present. Remember that if you are claiming points, you must have the evidence. Now, this is very important, guys. This is very important, and I would like to reiterate, no, that if this is only a guide, no, if you have a specific application, it's very important to consult a registered migration agent to have a look at your application. No, never do it alone and use this as your immigration advice. No, this is for information purposes. Now, say for example, for your employment, volunteer employment in the Philippines, no, is not counted. Say for example, you are a dental nurse. Now, dental nurse. If you are a dental nurse in Saudi Arabia, you are not registered in Saudi Arabia, that cannot be counted. If you are a dental nurse in United Arab Emirates, and if you are a registered nurse in UAE, that can be counted as long as you are registered. Okay? If, for example, you are working as a clinic nurse in the Philippines, you must prove that you have a paid work experience. Say for example, there must be the ITR, okay, the tax returns, or where do you get your salary. If it's a company or if it's a clinic, it goes to your bank, so you can print, no, you can print that. Of course, you have a professional reference. If you have SSS, those are secondary evidence. You cannot say I only have COE. No, everyone can make a COE. So that that is where the problem, no, will come out. That is a very big problem. So you have to remember that if you claim something, you have to prove it. No, claim it, prove it. So that's the mantra of the immigration: claim it, prove it. Now, how about let me see. How about the experience? It should be in the last 10 years. No? It should be in the last 10 years. um what Sometimes I encounter some problems, no, if the employer is gone, no, it's already gone. You cannot you you cannot you cannot locate the employer anymore, and you want some points, no, that's a very big problem. If you don't have like the evidence, For example, your ITR or your SSS. Not only SSS. If you have your ITR, that's a very good. That is a primary document, no, and it can be substantiated by SSS and by or COE. No, so those are the things that you need to remember in your employment claim. Another thing with regard to your status, no, with regard to your status, if you are single, you have 10 points. If you have a de facto partner, if your de facto partner will sit for the English test, you have 5 points. But if he doesn't want to sit, then you are losing 10 points. No? You cannot say I will not declare my de facto partner and then I will get my de facto partner once I get the permanent residency visa. That can never happen. So because that is incorrect information. If you are in a de facto, declare that you are in a de facto. If you are single, then you are single. All right. So 189. Well, with regard to point system, so you must my advice, no, or my tip to you is that you must score at least 80 to 85 points, no, so that we can have the nomination with some states. At RPS Migration, we do a lot of nomination. We have the New South Wales, for example. We have Victoria, we have South Australia, we have WA, and all other all other states, no? And when the nomination comes in, then uh, they can choose whether they go for 190, 491. So if, for example, you are given 491, no, and it's the only nomination that you got, then you have to get it because it's very easy. If you have 491, once you sit there for 3 years, the transition is very easy. And the number of years for citizenship will be counted from the moment you enter Australia anyway. So, for example, if you have 491, then after a year you become a permanent resident, the following year you will become an Australian citizen. That's how it goes here in Australia. So, 4 years the moment you enter Australia. At least there is 1 year of permanent residency. No, regardless whether you have your temporary residency for the last 3 years and then 1 year permanent residency the following year, you will become an Australian citizen. Okay, now that is the independent skilled 189. No, you are not nominated by any state, but if you are nominated by a state for 190, that is called 190, there is extra 5 points. And then if it's temporary, 491 in regional area. No, 489 your relative is in a regional area. So those are the four kinds of visa under general skilled migration, provided as well that no member of the family has the medical condition. No? The medical condition is something that attracts significant costs to Australian government. Say, for example, autism, for example, condition or kidney failure. So those are the medical conditions that can um, that can affect your permanent residency application. How about TB? No, how about TB? TB is not a TB, though it's a medical condition. However, the immigration is very liberal in treating tuberculosis. Sometimes you are asked to get medication, or it will delay your visa. However, you still have a good chance, no, to get your visa approved as long as it gets medicated. Now, so we have subclass 189, we have subclass 190, subclass 491, subclass 489. Those are the general skilled migration points tested visa, and the steps are the following. Number one, you should have your registration. Second, you should have your APAC assessment. Third is your invitation. Then the last the last part is the visa application. The ANMAC assessment. Let's talk about ANMAC assessment. You heard this ANMAC assessment when I discussed subclass 186, right? Subclass 189, 190, 491, 489, they need ANMAC assessment. So what are the things to be submitted to ANMAC? Number one, your registration. Number two, your professional reference. Professional reference is like COE. However, it includes the details about your work, and it must be written and signed by your supervisor in the hospital, in the facility. Do not write it yourself. No, do not write it yourself. That is very important. The professional reference must be written by a third person. It must not be written by the nurse herself or himself, because ANMAC will verify that to the employer, whether they wrote it, whether it is true, whether it is genuine. No? So remember that that is very important. Professional reference. Of course, the certificate of good standing. You must have sent it already because it is valid for 3 months. It is just sitting there. No? And ANMAC will just look in their database. Where is the certificate of good standing of nurse A? All right, it is here. Where is the professional reference? Yeah, it is here. Now, which ANSCO code? Which ANSCO code you will be choosing? Say, for example, you are working in the Philippines or in a facility, and you've been like rotating. You have your medical, surgical, perioperative, everything. So you have to choose only one, and you must have a professional reference of at least 3 months, no, for that. So you cannot include everything. If you want to include everything, you must choose only one. If it's medical, medical. Perioperative, perioperative. If you cannot decide, well, registered nurse, not elsewhere classified, do not submit anything. it's it's like a very general registered nurse, not elsewhere classified. So that is one of the requirements as well. Your passport, what else? Your transcript of records, the copy of your registration, whether you are an OSCE passer or some other ways here in Australia. Okay, so what are the things that I need to? The ANMAC assessment has a validity of 2 years, no? Has a validity of 2 years. Say for example, you have been waiting. You have been waiting for your invitation, and 2 years and 2 years have already lapsed, or 2 years have already pass. Now you have to renew. No, you have to renew your ANMAC because it has 2 years validity. If we want to change, no, for example, if you want to change or to update your ANMAC assessment, if you want to change or your ANMAC assessment, wait, hang on. So if you want to update it, you must ensure that your ANMAC assessment is not expired. Okay? Say, for example, you want to update the years of experience. You want to update the ANSCO code. If you want to update it, you're going to go to your portal and update it. And then, for example, from medical to perioperative, you want to change it. But the ANMAC expiry date doesn't change. Say, for example, the original issue date was last year. It won't change if you update it. It will just update the ANSCO code. It will just update the number of years of experience. However, the expiry date won't change. Therefore, if it expired, no, if it expires, then you have to renew it. All right. Of course, you have your COGS, your professional reference. So those are the things that you need to remember in ANMAC assessment. In our process, no, in our process at RPS Migration, we do the ANMAC. You don't need to worry about it. So we have the seamless process. We are going to look at your professional reference. We are going to suggest what are the things to consider. Huh? What else? Okay, so you have your 189, 190, 1491, and 489. Say, for example, there is another subclass which is subclass 407 visa. Huh? Subclass 407 visa. All nurses, say for example, you have less experience in the field. You only have like 1 year of experience, and it's very hard uh, to look for a sponsor. You may look for a subclass 407. Three stages as well. You have your sponsor, you have your nominator, and you have your visa application. So the sponsor must be an approved sponsor. Number two is nomination. It can be a host facility. Say for example, you will be working in the aged care facility as a registered nurse. That facility will ask will pay you for the remuneration and other uh, terms and conditions of employment, and then or training, and then you can apply for the visa. So you have you have you have a sponsor, you have a training provider, a training facility, and you will be monitored every maybe quarterly, because there is a training plan that you need to finish for a year. It can be extended for another year. I have one client today who is on subclass 407. She is a doctor. Uh, Once she gets her probationary registration here in Australia. Then she got her 407. She worked there for a year, and now she is going to apply for permanent residency because she gets her full registration already in Australia. Okay, that is subclass 407 visa. So those are the things. Now, those are the things that you need to those are the things, or those are the pathways for our OSCE passers. It opens an opportunities for subclass 482 or the skills in demand visa. It opens subclass 186 direct entry. And of course, it opens the subclass 407, which is a traineeship visa, and it also opens a general skilled migration 189, 190, 491, and 489. So hopefully, no, hopefully, you get that, so that you will have that overview of what is next after your after passing OSCE. I know it's very hard. I know it's very hard to look for sponsorship, but if you become a resident here in Australia, you can build your portfolio because you are already a resident. Remember, we have our program fast track registration to residency, and that is because and that is making you residents here in Australia, and that is the answer if you cannot find a sponsor. So for those of you who are interested to become residents or immigrants here in Australia, you may WhatsApp us at +61 415 831 158, and we can assess you. We can assess your qualifications. Say, for example, if you are interested to have the fast track registration to residency, go for NCLEX, go for OSCE, we can help you as well. And I would like to congratulate all our OSCE passers of Australian certified trainers. They did a very good job in November, in December. So, and February and January has just finished their OSCE examination or 2 weeks ago. And now, on Monday, we are going to start our February intake here in Australia. And I'm very excited because we have 26 strong candidates or 27 strong candidates from the Philippines, from India, from Nepal, from Thailand. We are very, very, very excited, no, to meet them on Monday, and they will be our February candidates. And if you are thinking on enrolling for your March intake, we are still open for our March intake, April intake, and we can help you. No, we can help you because we have a very comprehensive review here in Australia. So we have the online preliminaries. We do have as well our OSCE second check. We do have our battery test, mock test 24/7. It's unlimited. And of course, the free biscuits and the water here in the training center. That's what they like. No? I'm very happy, guys. So uh, if you can WhatsApp us +61 415 831 158, we can help you. And every Friday, I will try to be on live and discuss many things about migration. Just like next week, I would like to discuss the the pathway of our early childhood teachers here in Australia. Again, this is your registered migration agent here in Australia with MARA number 1382407, Attorney Renante Pisulit. So, see you guys and good luck. And thank you very much for joining in today. Thank you so much. Nabuhay.